wrote in Romans, "For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of people who suppress the truth by their unrighteousness, because of what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them." No God. Well, there is no God only if you suppress your thoughts about the idea of a God, and you suppress your own questions about your own existence, and you suppress your human awareness of your impending death. That's what separates human beings from animals. We understand that someday this physical body will stop working. And so we wonder about that. But animals can't think that far. But human beings do. And so the Apostle Paul is saying, people who don't want to believe in God suppress all those ideas. And I say, did my voice die out a little bit when you did that? It was nice and clear before, and then, okay, anyway. I just know because my voice might not be as strong as at the end. An atheist is one who continues to, I think, wakes up in the morning and starts to think, I can't think thoughts about God, so I gotta find reasons to not believe in God. And so that's why some people are so into science, because when they get caught up in the way this world works, they can sort of forget the idea of a creator. But that's just looking at how things work. That doesn't answer the problem of how we got here and what's going to happen when life ends. So you continually have to suppress the truth in order to be an atheist. The absurdity of life without God. As I was coming to church, I'm thinking, the absurdity, the word absurdity. I'm sure there's going to be someone here thinking, what is absurdity? Well, I looked it up. Being ridiculous or wildly unreasonable. And here's a good one. You probably won't forget this one. Instead of absurdity, you could say inconceivable. It's inconceivable. Without God, life is absurd. There is no reason for human existence. If God does not exist, the existence of this universe, like what we know around us, including human life, has, first of all, no meaning. It has no value, and it has no purpose. And so I'm going to go through each one of these systematically just to kind of spell out so we can understand. And believe it or not, as I've been looking at these, I'm thinking, okay, what is the difference then between meaning, value, and purpose? They're all interconnected, but they're not exactly the same thing. So, first of all, no meaning. The universe is ever expanding, as we looked at before, and it will eventually cease to exist as we know it. The outcome of the world does not matter. And this is, again, from the atheist perspective. The outcome of the world does not matter. Humans, as equals with other life forms, are doomed to a meaningless existence, and then will simply cease to exist. Human life, then, has no ultimate significance because there is no God or life after death. Each individual person passes out of existence when he dies. then what ultimate meaning can be given to his life? Does it really matter whether he ever existed at all? His life may be of important relative to certain other events, but what is the ultimate significance of any of those events? If all the events are meaningless, then what can be the ultimate meaning of influencing any of them? And ultimately, it makes no difference. Human life has no ultimate significance because there is no God and no life after death. There's an illustration in the book On Guard by Dr. Craig to illustrate the hopelessness of a meaningless existence. Craig wrote, "I once read a science fiction story in which an astronaut was marooned on a barren chunk of rock, lost in outer space. He had with him 2 vials, 2 little glass things with corks in them. All right. One of them contained poison, and the other a potion that would make him live forever. Realizing his predicament, remember he's marooned on a barren chunk of rock somewhere in space. He'll never be discovered. He'll just continue to exist there. So he realized, okay, he's going to gulp down the poison. He doesn't want to live anymore. But then to his horror, he discovered that he had swallowed the wrong vial. He had drunk the potion for immortality. And that meant that he was cursed to exist forever, a meaningless, unending life. Now, if God does not exist, our lives are just like that. Secondly, no value. If there is no life after death, there is no moral accountability. If God does not exist, objective values and duties, what is good and what is evil, what is right and what is wrong, all those things don't exist. No, there are no punishments for wrong actions or rewards for good ones. Our moral choices are inconsequential. Selfishness, then, is the only logical choice for the true atheist. You know, reaching your own individual goal of happiness, that's really all that we can get out of life. Kind of sounds like that first passage from Ecclesiastes. Live it up, because someday you won't be alive anymore. Pretty sad. And along with this selfishness, sacrifice for another person would be stupid in a world without God. Why would you do anything for someone else? And along these lines, there are existentialist philosophers like Jean-Paul Sartre. We are confronted with his words, the bare, valueless fact of existence. So we exist, but that's all. We just exist. Moral values are either just expressions of personal taste or the byproducts of socio-biological evolution and conditioning. In a world without God, who is to say which values are right and which are wrong? Who is to judge that the values of someone like Adolf Hitler are inferior to those of a saint, like St. Francis of Assisi? No one can judge that. Moral choices do not matter. To kill someone or to love someone is morally equivalent. Remember, I am talking from an atheist perspective. And believe it or not, there are atheist professors that will have lectures like this to tell the students this is the ultimate significance, because without God, they've got nothing. And so the end of all this, you'll see there are two choices for the atheist to try and deal with the world that they live in. It's really quite depressing. And so as I'm talking about this and I'm relaying this to you, I feel sorry for the atheist, because it's a very sad outlook on life. There is nothing to live for except pure selfishness. In a world without God, there can be no objective right or wrong, only our culturally and personally relative and subjective judgments. This means that it is impossible to condemn war, oppression, or crime as evil, nor can one praise brotherhood, equality, and love as good. No purpose. If God does not exist, and the entire universe, including humans, is simply a blind product of chance, there is no real reason for living. Humans were brought into a purposeless universe to live a purposeless life. The universe will keep on expanding until all life and energy disappears. There is no ultimate goal for human life, nothing to aspire to or to work toward. Another illustration of this. The only outlook left is one of utter despair. Why go on living? There's a picture there from a book that illustrates H.G. Wells' book, The Time Machine. In the time machine, the time traveler journeys far into the future. He goes to different places and different times. But here he travels far into the future to discover the destiny of man. All he finds is a dead earth, save for a few lichens and moss orbiting a gigantic red sun. The only sounds are the rush of the wind and the gentle ripple of the sea. Beyond these lifeless sounds, writes Wells, the world was silent. Silent? It would be hard to convey the stillness of it. All the sounds of man, the bleating of sheep, the cries of birds, the hum of insects, the stir that makes the background of our lives, all that was over. And I don't know if you can see the words there. It says, as I traveled on in great leaps of 1,000 years or more, I stopped again and again. And the time traveler says there, the sun grows larger and duller, and the life of the old earth is dying away. And so in the book, I guess the time traveler comes back to where he started his journey and pretends to live like his life has meaning. Nihilism is the only choice. Extreme skepticism of knowledge of real existence. Nothingness awaits all. The atheist view is ultimately unlivable. If God is dead, then so are we. like I said before, pretty sad. Atheists cannot be both consistent and happy with their views. If they try to live happily, they do so by inconsistently affirming meaning, value, and purpose for human lives, despite the lack of foundation for them. There's no foundation for any meaning, value, or purpose, as we've seen. And there have been some philosophers like L.D. Rue who talk about the noble lie. So, in order to live a happy atheistic life, we need to get a hold of a lie. It is one that deceives us, tricks us, compels us beyond self-interest, beyond ego, beyond family, nation, and race. Make up your own goal. So then you'll have some kind of purpose and you'll have some kind of personal meaning. And this is from the view of knowing that, like from an atheist perspective, knowing that you're not going to exist at a certain point. But I'll just make up some kind of purpose for my life and try and find meaning in that. It's like I had talked about before, but the two-story universe where the atheist wants to live on the first level, and yet they realize you can't live a happy life on the first level. It's very pessimistic. So they have to jump to the second level, but there's no foundation for it because they don't even believe the second level, that there is this idea of meaning, value, and purpose for human lives. But yet they need to get there in order to live a happy life. You see the problem that they're in? And those that want to live consistently with their atheistic views, human lives are meaningless. They're worthless, purposeless, and it brings profound unhappiness and ultimately despair. Again, I feel sorry for the atheist. But if the God of Christianity and human immortality exist, the existence of this universe, including human beings, has real meaning. Human beings are a necessary part of God's design. And we read in the Genesis account that the creation of mankind was the pinnacle of creation. There's not going to be another level of life springing from Homo sapiens, as some people think, that somehow, maybe with the new technology, that somehow we'll get, computers added to our brains and we'll get better or whatever. No, human beings, this is the ultimate in creation. We are a necessary part of God's design, real meaning. We have significance. Secondly, we do have intrinsic value. Human beings are made in the image of God. That is, and what do we mean when we say that and when we read that in Scripture, in the image of God? Do we mean that God looks like a man? I kind of alluded to it before. What's the difference between human beings and animals as far as what we think, how we can process? This ability to think complicated thoughts, to have emotions that will get us to think about our own life and the brevity of our life and what's going to happen after death. The ability to think, the ability to distinguish between what's right and what's wrong. Wasn't that the choice in the Garden of Eden? Intrinsic value. We've been made in the image of God. So every human life has value. And thirdly, we have an ultimate purpose. We are designed to live in harmony with God and his people forever. If God is real, then we can live happily and consistently within the framework of our worldview. That was pretty heavy, wasn't it? But do you agree with me that anyone who truly claims to be an atheist, that they're in a real sad place, very hopeless? Like I've got relatives that claim to be atheists, and I think to myself, why go on living? If you really believe that, why go on living? Anyway, okay, enough of that. I just want to reiterate some of these, what arguments we have seen that show the evidence for God's existence. The cosmological argument, whatever begins to exist has a cause. The universe began to exist, therefore the universe has a cause. The teleological argument, that's the fine-tuning argument. We looked at all those constants and quantities, the fine-tuning, and that there's purpose in the universe. And the moral argument, that if there is no God there, and I even talked about it today, there are no values and duties, morally speaking. But there are, and every culture, human culture in the world does have an idea of a moral law. Therefore, there is a moral lawgiver. So these arguments lend credibility to our Christian truth claims and may help someone who has real intellectual questions that have not been answered. And I want to remind everybody and myself, I had a friend in Bible college a long time ago, actually the first year we were married. He started learning a little bit of apologetics, I guess, and he just loved it because he loves to win an argument. So, and I don't know if some of you are there, but that's not really the point of apologetics, is to win an argument. It's really to win the person over to God. That if they're truly seeking, that you'll help them get over some of their intellectual questions. And so the most effective and practical apologetic is, of course, our relationship with God. If you are a Christian because your parents were, and you've always come to church because your parents brought you, but you've never had that life-changing moment when you know that Jesus came into my heart and he changed me. And I know God is real. Like, I am so glad I've had those experiences. I can always go back there like, yes, God, I know you're real. I know you changed me. So important, foundational. And then, of course, our relationship with others. This is how the world will know. If you love one another, and even if you love your enemies, pray for your enemies. More often than not, it is who you are rather than what you say that will bring an unbeliever to Christ. We are way ahead of schedule. Let's just pray. Lord, I thank you, God, that you have brought us to this place today. Lord, I thank you that you have given us all that we need for life.